But there's more. I can't even think of a proper introduction to give to the next speaker. Personality, author, journalist, Will Self.
Yeah, nice to see Mark here. Last time I ran into him, we were at a party for the newspaper we both then worked for at Asprey's, the jewellers, on Regent Street, quaffing champagne. I'm upper middle class. You may have noticed that by the tweed jacket, the Oxford education, the accent, and like a lot of upper middle class people who are Oxford educated, I am an extreme left-wing revolutionary. So I'm just here to say it out loud for the upper middle class, extreme left revolutionary wing of things. It needn't be a barrier to being conscientized to what's going on here. Indeed, if we can take it down for a little bit and think about some things, we might consider, and I think Mark gave a very beautiful, brilliant and eloquent summary of some of what's been going on in the education sector over the last few years. But if we can just try and think about this for a minute, because whatever the outcome of this occupation, again as Mark said, this shit isn't going to go away anytime soon. In fact, it's eating its way progressively through our culture like some kind of miserable cancer, frankly. You know, for a long time, I think people on the left took the view, unconsciously, that education remained the thing that would help make this an egalitarian society, that it kind of didn't matter what happened elsewhere, but as long as everybody had the same kind of education and there was access to university and people were able to get grants, remember what those were, to complete a tertiary education, that would act as a leveller in our society. And what this occupation is about, and what the increasing privatisation of tertiary education is about, is destroying that idea. Okay, it's kind of over. The Brown Report, which is what's being implemented in all sorts of ways throughout the tertiary sector at the moment, was commissioned by a Labour government and ushered in under Labour. Back in the 96, the election that brought that bastard into power? 97. In the 97 election, I put a sign in my window that said a vote for Labour isn't necessarily a vote for that sanctimonious git Blair. How wrong I was. How emphatically wrong I was. But I always knew he was a wrong-un. You know, saving the presence of faculty members who are giving their support. Let's have a little think about what universities are about. I know Mark touched on this. Let's just have a little think about what's involved in them. This is a research university. A lot of academics here, I work at a university, so I know a bit about this. A lot of academics here are interested in doing their research primarily, because that's what they're into, that's their gig. You'll be familiar with these people, won't you? They're really into their research. Educating you is something of a byproduct. Yeah? Lots of academics here will be teaching you aspects of their own research because that's what's of interest to them. Now, I'm not necessarily criticising that tendency, and it can be benign within a tertiary education system that recognises the importance of equal access and recognises what the value of tertiary education is to a wider society. But given what's happening to our system, that need, it's using and infiltrating those academics' minds in an unconscious way, because they're very nervous that they're not going to be allowed to read the recondite books that they want to read and do the experiments that they want to do, and they feel their position under threat, and that makes them very quiet in the face of issues like this. They go strangely quiet around it. And if you're on the inside of what's happening in academia, what you see, you'll be familiar with something called the NSS, yeah? The National Student Survey. You are the Bridgepoint generation at university. You're a really important generation because you represent the tipping point, the point at which marketisation will finally and irrevocably bite down on our education system. The NSS, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a little survey that you're meant to do in your third year to say how absolutely brilliant your lecturers were and what a fantastic time you had at university. The conviction in the administration of the university is that the next generation of students who are applying to university now will look at those NSS survey results the way that people look at reviews on Google for new products. And if they don't get a good NSS result for Sussex, then the punters won't come in, right? Why does that matter so much? Because fee income is now the university's budget, okay? So your fee income is what enables people to sit in their studies reading Elizabethan poetry, okay? What? Don't knock Elizabethan poetry. I'm not knocking Elizabethan poetry. Frankly, I'd quite like to be reading some Elizabethan. I'd like to be dressed as an Elizabethan. I look very fetching in a codpiece. In fact, I'd like to be wearing a codpiece and eating a piece of cod. I think that'd be kind of neat, actually, and kind of symmetry to it, and maybe singing Hey Nonny No, or not, as the case may be. No, I'm not knocking it, but what I'm saying is, this is how insidious these reforms are. Because in a sense, people who care about education, people who are in the faculty, and people who care that education should work and should be open to people, it's a classic tactic, it's divide and rule. A thin and insidious wedge is being driven between people in the faculty who would naturally support this. It's being driven between them and you, and it's being driven between them and the other auxiliary workers on the campus who this occupation and their livelihood, this is all about, okay? And that's what our society encourages. It encourages everybody to think of their life in terms of their income and protecting their income, and the devil take the hindmost. And that's the way it's gone. But all I'm saying, I'm not being an old misery guts, though actually I am, because I'm naturally miserable. Okay? I do not get up in the morning with a song in my heart. The bluebird of happiness has long since departed. And this morning I was visited by the chicken of depression. It's all very well, is the point, kind of banging the drum and mouthing a few slogans. And it's all very well looking at education as if it's the whole world. And it is the whole world for you now. And it is a very, very important political forcing ground. But you have to consider why it is that the strange neoliberal invasion of the body snatchers is being quite as successful as it is in the tertiary education sector. And not to be a kind of difficult, miserable, strange person, although I am. The thing is, I actually thought it was one of those duvet days. In fact, I'm still not convinced it is. I mean, I often have these, does this not happen to anybody else? I wake up in the morning when the alarm rings, and instead of getting out of bed, during the night, because I'm quite a restless sleeper, the poppers have gone on the duvet cover, and I get inside the duvet cover. And I've got quite a sort of lively imagination, and I tend to the duvet's quite sort of sweaty and malleable, and I mould it into all sorts of objects and things. The chicken of depression, an occupation at Sussex University that I might be speaking at, possibly in my dreams. And this goes on all day, and eventually my wife will come upstairs in the evening and open the duvet up and say, "You silly fucker, you climbed inside the duvet cover again." I'm not quite sure about, reality duvet. That's a bit of a problem for me. But assuming that this is real, rather than you all being a sort of weird duvet creation, some of you do look a bit puffy. Yeah. But actually, I don't think even my consciousness could quite manufacture this many faces at once. So possibly. Assuming that this is real, there are some hard things going on here. What happened with the tertiary education sector over the last 10 or 15 years? It expanded massively. It was one of the pabulums that the Blair government handed out. It said everybody can have a degree. We want 50% of the population in tertiary education. Right? Didn't they? Now you have to ask yourself what that's for. Where the society is going. And what impact that has on the marginalisation of people from the old industrial sector, who are now, in some cases, not so much down south where it happens here, but up north, are into their third and fourth generation of systemic unemployment. So you have to think about that. You're not going to be here forever. It's a big, largely indifferent world out there. And you're going to have to join it. So if I can leave you with any thought at all, it's that the revolution doesn't end here, it begins here. And if you feel an enhanced collective consciousness during the progress of this occupation, then take it somewhere else. If you feel some solidarity with workers on low pay, don't ever lose it. Don't ever become the kind of arsehole who ignores the chicken of depression. Because that's really the dividing line. And the other thing, mistrust power chronically. Mistrust power chronically. I think the reason why we have so little faith in our political system, and we do, and justifiably so, really, frankly, justifiably so, is because the little kind of political games that they play, the kind of people who go into politics on the whole, saving the presence of people who may be involved in student politics here, are like train spotters with attitude, and a bad attitude. They say politics is pop music for show business for ugly people. I actually think show business is show business for ugly people, but there you go. What's happened in politics over the last few years is that you can see those games so clearly now. You can all see them. You can all see the train spotters scratching each other's eyes out, and it's not an edifying spectacle. There isn't a fly's pubic hair's difference between the leaders of the major political parties now. There really isn't. There's nothing between them. So don't lose that mistrust. Keep it endemically. Mark talked rather pitifully about our age. I don't feel pitiful about it at all. I feel that to have reached our age mark and to still be as enraged as we are by the abuse of power is as good as any elixir of eternal youth that could possibly. Look at us, he's got a full head of luxuriant dark hair. I have a magnificently svelte figure. What is keeping us so young? If not wanting to part the two pink buttock cheeks of David Cameron's face. And gently, slowly, almost lovingly, insert a well-lubricated Aardman Animations plasticine figure called Ed Miliband into his anus-like mouth. Thank you very much.